Hi, I'm Amanda. You might know me as Plilly Pig. I'm an artist and an illustrator. Sometimes I paint on fountain pens and I make stickers, and I also wrote a book, this one, which I'm really proud of. And today I'm here to talk to you about my first collaboration with EndlessPens, their Hatch program, which is this Moonlight Sonata pen. So I wanted to spend my video walking you through kind of the thought process and the logistical process behind designing a pen like this, designing artwork for a pen like this. A lot of times you just get to see the final artwork, and it's really interesting kind of the decisions that are made along the way. So this collaboration started with EndlessPens over a year ago when they reached out to me inviting me to collaborate on a pen. Actually, I had reached out to them probably a year before that wanting to collaborate, and I was turned down because I didn't have enough Instagram followers. That is exactly why I started posting more on Instagram. I didn't really use it before that. I didn't use any social media, but I really wanted the opportunity to put art on a fountain pen, and it was a very motivating factor. So the first thing I had to do for Endless was create a proposal. My proposal, I immediately wanted to do something with music. Music plays a big role in my life, as always has. I wanted to be a singer at one point. I also knew right from the beginning that I wanted to do one of these mini pocket pens with Opus because it allows you to put your art on it, and also I have a thing for tiny chunky pens. Then of course you have Opus, and then Opus like piano Opus, a musical Opus, and I couldn't turn that idea off in my head. So I actually submitted 2 designs to EndlessPens, one for Moonlight Sonata and another for a pastoral, and Endless chose to go with Moonlight Sonata. And I thought, okay, great, I'll just draw a picture in it and then we'll be done. But that's never how it works out. So right from the very beginning, Endless was very transparent with me about the printing specs. I was allowed to have 8 colors, but I was also allowed to have a multiply option for the colors. And I thought that meant that I could print things like a CYMK, like have a layer with cyan, have a layer with magenta, and kind of artificially create all the colors. Turns out that's not the case, but to back up a little bit, I want to talk about the design. So when I design for a pen, something that's always on my mind is the cylindrical shape of it, the form of the object that inspires the user to turn the pen. It's a cylinder, and to do that, I like to have a design that wraps up in a spiral. And so you'll see that I incorporated that into this design. You have a musical staff that climbs up, and the direction of the moth, the owls are all guiding your eye up that spiral so that you can turn the pen. The other thing that I think of is that, so because it's a cylinder, you really can only see 1/4 to 1/3 of the pen at any time. And so you, rather than designing for a landscape, you're designing in 3 or 4 very vertical narrow strips, so that every time the user looks at the pen, no matter the angle, it has a clear focal point. It has a direction. No part of that pen feels like it was an afterthought of the design or entirely background, which is very different from when you're designing for an illustration, like a paper illustration, because you want a singular focal point. You want your eye to go to a certain place. You want to know where you're supposed to look. I want to show you the first artwork I created. So here it is, and you will notice one is that it is rather dull. I tend to migrate towards desaturated, cool colors, but it makes everything look kind of dull, and I have to force myself outside of it. The colors make it feel not as playful, definitely not vibrant as I wanted to go for this pen, because the pocket pen is small and it's cute, and I wanted something that felt joyful while also feeling magical. So this is my next rendition. You can see I changed the color balance. I took out a lot of the yellow. I really pushed the purples and blues, and it's more saturated in some areas. And the contrast, the tonal contrast is better. So some items stick out more in the art than others. Like the owl sticks out, the moth sticks out, the moon has a glow. It doesn't feel as flat. Here you can see I started to intentionally push the blues to be part of the foreground, whereas leaving the purples to be part of the background. Blues are really much more what the moon is highlighting, what the light is shining on. It's giving that blue tinge to things that are in focus. And I've also changed the flowers. The generic, like, pretty flower thing just wasn't working for me, and so I went with these flowers, which blossom at night. I refined the design even more. I made the moth smaller and got rid of the second moth because the second moth was pulling away from the owl in that vertical strip of the design, and I really just wanted to have a more even spacing as you turn the pen around. So I believe that this is the design that I submitted to Hatch, and they got back to me and remembered the issues with the color printing, that they could not do what I had expected them to be able to do and have this CYMK simulation with their printer, with having the 4 colors but at different opacities. And so I needed to figure out how to change this illustration to only having 8 colors. My first approach to that was to redraw the whole illustration entirely. I changed the palette to only 8 colors. You can see I opted for the blues and the purples, using different brushes to try and keep the color palette as simple as possible. After I did that, I also learned that in Photoshop, you can reduce your color palette to 8 colors and it uses dots to kind of fool the eye into thinking that there are more colors. So I was really excited about that, and I submitted that to Hatch, and everybody there seemed excited, and they sent it over to Opus and they printed the pen. This was the first printing of the pen. It is a disaster. I think something about how the printer works, like the blues overpower everything. The owl's face just got completely drowned in blue. It's hideous. So back to the drawing board again, redrew the image one more time, and tried to imitate the classic vector look while not going all the way there. And this is the image that finally got sent to Opus for the final printing and got approved, and here it is. So altogether, just within the time within my Procreate files alone, so that's not Photoshop time, not time communicating with EndlessPens, not time designing on paper, I have about 45 to 50 hours tracked. I think this pen also had some additional design challenges. One is that it is much smaller than I realized. I mean, I had the dimensions, but when you print something so small, the contrast matters so much. It's like designing a logo. Like, all those fine details are going to get lost. And then another thing that I had to think about is that the design had to match up on the ends. It had to be a full rotation, which is easier when you're painting a pen because you can just like paint in a cylinder. But here I really had to be cautious and go back and forth between either side of the design so that I wasn't leaving any part of the illustration less developed. So yeah, that's the general overview, and I hope that you like it. I am really happy with it. And then to wrap this video up, I want to extend a sincere thank you to EndlessPens, the whole Hatch program. It has been a dream to work with. I think I have seen so many things from this team that I haven't seen elsewhere with creative collaboration. For example, when we first got started and they sent me the contract, I had a lot of questions, a lot of things I wanted changed, and I have never met a company so willing to talk with me about that and really prioritize what is best for the artist and what an artist needs in order to kind of make a stand for themselves and their art. They were also extremely patient with me with going back and forth with these files as I learned about what worked and didn't, about this first failure of a pen and having to rework the art and have it reprinted. Just a company that's really into allowing the artist to take risks and push the boundaries of what might be doable. Just all of their support with the marketing efforts and the photography and just their general enthusiasm for this thing I made. It's so refreshing and feels so great to feel like I am actually valued. Yeah, I just can't wait.